Welcome to a live version of So Well with Rob Appell on YouTube, presented by Stitchin Heaven out in wonderful Quitman, Texas. And I'm super excited to see you all here. I'm just finishing getting everything set up. We are going to do live free motion machine quilting on a domestic freestyle, no marking. Oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. So let me just make sure I've got all my technology ready for all of us today because I am wildly excited about this, therefore, aka a little anxious, if you know what I'm saying. So let's just do this real quick. I want to make sure I am here for everybody. And I always think I've got it set up and then I don't. So here we go again. And there's the live feed. Perfect. I can see what's happening and therefore I can see your comments. Fantastic. So thank you very much for being here. This is awesome. There's been a lot of folks. Oh my goodness, the feedback has been incredible. I am so blessed. 26,000 views or something like that on our basting from last week. And there were several questions. So we're going to quilt. I've got about an hour today to spend before I get to run off with my family. We're going to do something wonderful this weekend, and I want to get an early start. So sit back, relax. I want to do some question and answer from last week. I'm going to show you all of my setup, all of my products, because what I keep hearing from all of you is you're not getting enough of this kind of content on YouTube. So I apologize. It's warm in the studio. I've got to take that second here, just kind of my goodness, dab off a bit. And the lights are on and everything. I can see I've got a bunch of you already logged in. Liz and Cynthia and Philip and Cheryl. Fantastic. Thank you for being here. I can monitor comments for a while. So if you have questions, please drop them in the comment feed. If you're watching this later on recorded, you can go back and look at all that. It's a wonderful way we can participate as a community. So the first question and answer from Rob to one of or several of the questions out there was, how do you know when I go live? I don't even really know when I'm going to go live. I'm not great at posting on other social media feeds like Instagram and Facebook until it's after the fact. So the easiest way, and this is why we always say it, subscribe to the Stitchin Heaven YouTube network, subscribe right here to this channel, and then hit the little bell, and that notifies you when any of your favorite content goes live that you've selected. So at any rate, that's a question that I was asked several times. I forgot to ask all of you the question we're always supposed to ask: is the audio okay today? I'm wearing wireless microphones, so please make sure that you can hear me okay. I realize I'm standing in a weird crop format, so here I'll get a little lower as well so that we're ready for when it's time to do our machine quilting tripod situation. So that was the first question. Yes, please subscribe so that you're notified so that you know when we go live. Last week, I basted the quilt and I was talking about doing a large project. Quilt is, I think, 56 by 72. My table, I've got it written down. I measured it all for you. It is 42 by 66. So it is not the smallest table, but I wanted to show all of you, if you haven't seen the video yet, you can go back and watch it. We always keep the live versions as then saved versions for later. And what that's going to do is I showed how I had to move the quilt around a bit on the table, how I use some clamps. Those clamps, you can use binder clips. You can use those big clamps. I've gotten mine off of the internet. Yes, Harbor Freight was mentioned. These were all great suggestions on being part of our community. So again, thank you for being here. I'm really like blessed to have all of this interaction, this engagement. So I'm so excited. So the table is made from a sheet of plywood. Actually, it was 2 sheets of plywood. I have a sheet of plywood, then I have risers made out of 2x2 lumber. It was redwood because I like the look of it. And it's risen about 2.5 inches so I can get my hands between. I have like my Martelli rotary mat right now underneath here. I've got a soundboard between the tables. I store patterns and fusible web and long rulers and stuff. And then on the top is just another matching sheet of plywood. But to make it even prettier, I then surfaced it with some contact cement and a piece of masonite. And you all know masonite from your skateboarding days. The skateboard ramps are made from masonite. It's a very nice, smooth, very durable material. It resists some of those pin scratches we were talking about last week. A lot of comments about putting cardboard, those wonderful old garment mats you could put out underneath your quilt as you're pinning on a table. You do not not want to scratch up your beautiful heirloom oak dining room table. So that was some of the things we talked about last week, and I wanted to follow up with some of those answers for everybody out there. And then also, I don't know if I can do it. I didn't do my yoga this morning. Ouch, that hurts. But thank you very much for the sock compliments. Yeah, I have a huge collection. No, I have a small collection of awesome, fun, inspirational socks and things. And if any of you would like to donate a pair of wonderful, inspirational socks to my collection, you can send them over to Stitchin Heaven, care of Rob Appell, and I will be very blessed, and I will show them on my feet. And that is why I wear wonderful socks, because I do not want you to see how beat up these surfers' feet are. So at any rate, thank you for noticing my socks. I'm so glad I chose to put them on last week. Couple of last quick things, announcements wise, in the description below as we're getting started on this quilt today, as I'm getting everybody here and excited. We now have just this morning posted, and there's links in the description, the black kit version. So I believe there's actually 3 kit versions for this Texas Starlight quilt, this beautiful quilt that's made from the ombres. I believe these are the Vanessa Christensen ombres. And then this was a idea. I think it was my idea. I don't know, but I requested to have it here at home. And that was the black background version. This has gold metallic in the ombre. So you can get white with gold. There was white with silver, but I don't know if those kits are still available. Another reason to be subscribed. We are starting to move through our inventory pretty quick at Stitchin Heaven because we have so many wonderful fans like you following along. And so at any rate, the black version is available today for pre-order. It just went up for pre-order this morning because the team at Stitchin Heaven knew I was going to be showing this afternoon. So anyways, you can get this. And then yesterday, if you're paying attention, and if not, you've got to be registered for our emails at Stitchin Heaven, because yesterday we did a midnight special, a midnight sale. And what that was the white version of this kit. And I was like, wait, you can't put it on special the day before I show it. That's not fair to all of our wonderful viewers out there. So we have an extended opportunity. Yesterday's midnight special expires now tonight, Friday night. What is today even? 10/7, October 7th. So at 11:59 p.m., the special will expire, but you can get the white version on a serious discount if you want the white version as well. It is immaculate. It is gorgeous. And I'm not exactly sure when the black versions will be ready. But anyways, I really appreciate the team at Stitchin Heaven having that information available. StitchinHeaven.com. We're almost done with all of the announcements. I have a retreat coming up that I'm super excited about. That retreat, I posted some videos on my social media this morning and all of that. So you can join me for a retreat on the Super 60 sampler quilt that's over here on the design wall. I'm working through another color version of this, making another video for all of you to use the Super 60 sampler setup and my template set. So that's really exciting. And then I also want to make sure you know that you can now get your tickets, but don't wait long. Christmas in Quiltman, December 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in Quitman, Texas, at Stitchin Heaven in the new Expo Center. We're having an amazing event, huge opportunity to meet a bunch of the celebrities that are out there. And we would just love to have all of you join us. It is open to the public, but you're going to need tickets. So sign up. I believe the link is also in the description this morning. So with all of those announcements said, I have one question we'll get to later back on, but I know you're dying to see some quilting. I appreciate you hanging on. Thank you very much. Doris is here for her first time. Oh my gosh, I appreciate it. Jenny, I think you were one of the ones that said you wish you could come to the retreat. I appreciate that. Audio sounding good. Clovis, not too far away. Karen, loving it. So, okay, I put this on here for the photograph, but let's talk about, for our brand new machine quilters that are out there, let's talk about the setup. At this point, the quilt is basted. So the quilt top, the batting, and the backing are all secured with safety pins. So I can wad it, crunch it, scrunch it, move it all around at this point. I'm going to have to, for the rest of its life, while I shove it, all of these words are intentional today, underneath the head of this. This is a Juki machine. I think it's about a 10-inch opening, so it's not the smallest machine, but it is definitely not the biggest machine out there. So a couple of things. I have a spool of black cotton thread in the top. Last week, I warned you all, I will be quilting this the way I want to quilt it, which means it may not be super easy to see on camera. I've got some extra lights. I hope it will be okay, but today we're going to do some black and black as we start to echo the stars. I have a full green bobbin, cotton threads, top and bottom. Green because the quilt backing is green. So that's how we're going to do it. I have already done a very small amount of quilting to just test right before we went live, just to make sure everything was threaded and loaded correctly so that you didn't have to watch me struggle through that. I want to say this is a parenting moment. So meaning do more of what I say versus what I did. You should practice much more than a small piece like this. Okay. I'm not warmed up like I would like to be. I really didn't test the machine and all of that. I was literally just looking at thread, just looking at tension because I'm a fairly confident quilter at this point in my life. But if you're brand new, you should be practicing much more than a couple of stitches, right, before you get started with your beautiful, quilt that you've been working on for quite a while. I have a brand new needle in the machine. I am using the Schmetz. This is a no, excuse me, I almost said top stitch. I don't care for the top stitch. I don't know why I said that. This is the Microtex. Some of you know these as sharps, size 80-12. It's my favorite quilting needle, especially when applique quilting. But right now we're just going through 3 layers, 4 layers where the seam allowances are. But always a fresh needle when I start, full bobbin when I start. We're going to quilt probably through the bobbin today together. So I've gotten those tools that I had out there. Now, I'm hoping you can see this. I happen to have a bed on my sewing machine. So this is an extension table. Many of you are more fortunate than I that you have your sewing machine inside of a cabinet. That's my preferred way to sit and quilt domestically, because now your whole table becomes part of your work surface. And that's the thing we really want to tend to next, is getting as many limitations out of our way. So I've actually moved my sewing machine a little more towards the center of my table. That's going to give me a different line of sight. I won't be bending over as much. I'm standing today while I do this, and this is not going to be what I recommend for you, but this is what we need to do here today in video format because of the height of my table. I want to have a good line of sight. I want to have a good reach to my machine. I want the machine more in the center of my table because I want the table to hold as much of the weight of the full size quilt that we're working on today. That's part of the trick of all of this. Not a trick as in a deceptive smoke and mirrors, but what you were asking for is, how do we all really do this? How do many of us quilt without our long arm machines? A million years ago, I met the lady who created this product. There's a couple out there at Stitchin Heaven. We have the Supreme Slider. This was called the Sew Slit Mat. It is a piece of Teflon and silicone. So basically it is Teflon that's going to go on the bed of my machine. And as I set this on here, what I've got now is, and it just sticks from the silicone. So Teflon on top, silicone on the bottom. And at the moment, I now have a more slippery surface where my hands will be as we are machine quilting today. Okay, so that's going to give me a real nice ability to move the quilt. Oh, yeah, that's right. I left my bobbin out here to tell us all we had a full bobbin in the machine. I can move that. I have scissors handy because I'm going to teach us all how to start and stop, and scissors are going to be real important for that. I've also got my mat cattywampus, and we're going to move this now out of the way, but it is normally on my table. We're going to stuff and fluff. That's one of Paula's terms, but we're going to fluff and stuff the quilt throughout the machine. But I still don't want any drag stuff on my table. So this mat here is what's used for cutting our fabrics, and it's got a texture that holds our fabrics so they don't slip when we're cutting with the rotary cutter. So I have learned over time, I don't want my mat near my machine or under my quilt while I'm trying to do my free motion machine quilting, because it can add drag on the quilt when I'm not paying attention, and that drag will start to be felt in my shoulders and I'll start to fatigue pretty quick. So anyways, that's why this is sitting here, to remind all of you, excuse me, I've got to go set this somewhere safe. Okay, so now my work surface is fairly clear. I'm going to put on these machine gears gloves. I want to talk about this real quick as I start to work my way towards the middle of the quilt. If I sound a little hoarse today, I apologize, but it's not sincere, because I have been having a lovely time the last few evenings out in the wood shop working on making a new wood project. But even though I've been wearing a mask, I have been eating way too much sawdust. So I have multiple coughing fits this morning. I apologize if I sound a little rough. And secondly, you probably can't, maybe you can see them, but I want the award for the most, or what should we say? Here's the award in the quilting industry, the best fight club hands, right? I want the award for the best fight club hands in the quilting industry. They're always getting beat up. And this isn't even woodworking. This was a kitchen wound from being burned while flipping a pizza, or not flipping a pizza. If you've ever flipped a pizza in an oven, boy. Anyways, but goofing off in the kitchen, you know me, I love to cook. I love to do other things. As the wellness message, as I'm getting set up and started here for the day, one of the things that I do think is so very crucial in wellness is doing things that push and challenge ourselves, but also reward and inspire us. So the things we love to do and new things that are out there that we challenge ourselves to do. Both of those are important. So cooking and woodworking, cooking, it's a necessity. Woodworking, it's a joy, something I'm terrible at that I can just let go and release while I'm trying to be good at quilting for all of you. Now, okay, we're going to put the gloves on in a second, but to be fair, I'm going to move the camera. I have another tripod right over the machine. So I'm now going to move the camera so all you can see is the needle on the machine. I do believe that's what you are all asking for. So I'm going to check in real quick, make sure I've got all of my questions answered here. Got it. Fantastic. Thank you all again for being here. If you have questions, please drop them in the comments. I can see what's going on, but I'm not paying much attention because I want to get to our quilting here. So, okay, I'm going to move the camera. This is a live feed. I hope to not kill the feed. So if I do, I'll come back live in a second. Please join me again. And you might want to look away. This is going to get a little rough while we move you over here. But here we go. Easy does it. Isn't that a pretty quilt though? Oh my gosh. Look at these. Okay, you can see the safety pins in here. You can see everything ready to go. Okay, so now we're just going to slide ourselves into the other tripod. Just gentle, easy does it. Okay. Let me just adjust this a little bit so you can all see a little bit better. Maybe I can bring you in a little closer even. Oh, look at that shot, huh? Ooh, it is very pretty. Okay, we have some quilting to learn, folks. And I'm putting on my Machine Gears gloves. I'm sorry, I forgot to put links for the products in the description, but you could search for these. It's the word machine and finger together, and they come in a variety of sizes. You want to make sure they get ones that fit good and tight like your snowboarding boots, because you don't want them to slipping around. You want all of your traction in your fingers, because the Machine Gears gloves have these rubberized fingertips. And on these rubberized fingertips, it's going to give me the ability to hold my fabric and move ever so slightly on top of that wonderful sew slip mat. So basically now I have an ice skating rink below the quilt, and I have a pair of Spider-Man hands on. So we are going to now start. Like I said, I want to kind of echo around the stars. And, oh, thank you. Great question, Janice. I have moved myself to the middle of the quilt. Okay, so I am in the center of the quilt. I'm going to work all of the black fabric first. Then in another video on another day, we're going to move to different colors and we're going to play in the stars with different motifs. I'm going to echo with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I found myself one of the seams for the patchwork. Okay, oh, good question. Now you're distracting me, all of you, but I love the questions. This happens to be the Juki DX3000. This is a multi-stitch machine. I also have the J150 across the room, and maybe in a few weeks we'll set up and quilt on that one on this quilt too, just for fun, but it's a little more industrial. I wanted to have my most common machine, like something that all of you might have with you. Okay, so real quick, as we're getting ready to get started, I am going to lower my presser foot. So I have tension on my thread. Lots of videos that I've talked about that lately. I have my fingers on my black thread. I see that you can see that just barely. Now I'm going to do a single stitch. So I might want to do needle down, needle back up. Now that I've done that, I can actually lift my presser foot and move my fabric. Do you see that green? That's the bobbin thread. So if you weren't paying attention, you just learned how to start your quilting so that you have your needle thread and your bobbin thread both on the top. This is how the quilt judges like it, I believe. They definitely want it to be knotted up. So now I'm going to lower my presser foot again. Okay. Okay. Now, Roxy, we are doing free motion. So stitch length is set to 0 and feed dogs are down right now. Okay. So we're free motion quilting. And I'm going to take a few stitches to lock that in place. Probably made a little ball of thread on the back, but not too big of a deal. Okay, I'm going to use my edge of my foot along the edge of that star, and I'm just going to keep a pace, and I'm just going to push this quilt. I'm doing all the movement down along this star. Okay, let's talk about one of the things that, here, let's do this. Hang on, team. I was missing you all there for a second. Okay, so we are now going to disrupt rumor number 1 in machine quilting about not pivoting or not rotating your quilt. But my answer is the needle is down. It's not going to move at all when I rotate my quilt. So you can rotate the quilt, but you don't want the needle moving while you're trying to rotate. We can move the quilt, but I'm always kind of keeping the north of the quilt north. Watch. Hopefully that will make some more sense. Okay, I got to flip the camera back around here. This is fun. I hope you guys are having half as much fun as I'm having today. Okay. Now, oh, you know what? Before I put this glove back on, I'm going to zoom out a little, team, because I want you to be able to kind of see where I'm looking and where I'm going. Does that help a little bit? Okay, and I'm also just losing my watch for now because I'm afraid it was going to hit. The quilt on the design wall is called the Super 60 Sampler. I have a retreat coming up for that in February, and a video coming up for that in the near future. Couple of weeks out still. We're just filming that right now. Patterns and templates are now available at Stitchin Heaven. Okay, so I just did kind of a slight rotation, and now you see I'm just using the edge of that foot to just echo that star. I'm using the black thread in the black fabric because I don't want to change the shade of the black. These stars really stand out at a distance because of this black contrast. So if I put different colors of thread in this black, it would start to dull down the black. So I want to go black on black. I know it's hard for you to see my actual stitching. Trust it. It's perfect. Just kidding. Okay, here's another good teachable point. I'm about an inch from my first safety pin. So at this point, I'm going to pull the safety pin. In other videos later on, as I get closer to the edge, I will pull the safety pins out further. We talked about that in the basting video. But right now, I'm just kind of echoing to the tip of that star. Okay, and now I can come around this way. Again, I haven't rotated the quilt much. And if I do need to rotate the quilt like I'm coming into here, I'm going to stop. I'm going to pivot the quilt and then continue on with my free motion machine quilting. Now, I don't want to just echo the stars. I want to be more creative than that, and you want to see more creative than that. So what I'm going to do now that I've basically kind of basted again by going around a section is I'm coming to the quilt. Let's see if I can do this to help all of you see better. Okay. There. I know it's a terrible camera angle, but remember, this is for education today. I'm not trying to impress anyone with my camera skills. I'm coming into my quilt, took my gloves off so I could operate the dang camera, and I'm lifting it because it's catching on the corners of my table. Right? Not in a bad way, but I want the extra body of my quilt already ready, right? I'm just kind of preloading the area I'm going to work in next, okay? And as much as I love those gloves, just so that I can work a little bit, I'm going to leave them off for a few minutes. Now that I've reorganized the quilt, we do this a lot. Let me bring this in here. Really appreciate you all sticking with me out there. I hope this is okay for y'all. Okay, here we go. Now I'm just going to do some freestyle, some swoops and some swirls, and I'm going to also respect this point over here because eventually I will have echoed this point too, okay? So now, if I want to do something else, I can play off of these lines I had created. And in this case, it's more like filling in. I have a series of motifs I like this swirl. What I'm doing is I'm going back and forth a couple of different times. Then I do a circle to be able to rotate the direction. It's like a paisley swoop, and it's real generic, but it's fun and it's soft, and it allows me to put some other stitching, and then I can ride this stitch line again where I was coming down, echoing the star. So that's kind of like a trail or a path now between the different kinds of quilting. I'm going to give myself a little bit more room to work here, and I'm going to then come up here and continue that motif by adding a circle in, so I can throw a paisley in this direction. And then I like to go about 3 directions. So that was 1, 2, 3. So I'm back at the start, and I can actually go another direction now. 1, 2, 3, coming into that corner. Maybe drop a circle and rotate out. Now, as I swirl around this way, I just want to show you what I mean. Now I'm over here around another part of the patchwork. Okay, so what I want to do here, I'm going to stop, and you can see, hopefully I'm fluffing a bit. Okay. Oh, thank you for the encouragement, Kathleen. I wanted to make sure. Okay, you're doing. Jenny, thank you. Awesome. Oh, you gal, you shouldn't have encouraged me. Okay. Now I'm going to watch this foot along this line to create another one of those echo straight lines here, and I can come past it using my foot here. Boy, I can certainly feel the difference of not having those gloves on. Okay, still echoing. To that seam, I can stop. Now, here's another good thing I can share with all of you. Always having a spot to know where you can stop and take a break. So I like to do it in seam allowances, because sometimes when I get started again, things are going to shift, and that seam allowance might hide an extra stitch or a wiggle or something like that. So that's one of the things that I find that can be a bit of a benefit is stopping in a seam allowance can be a bit of a benefit. Knowing where you plan to stop before you start is almost imperative, because that way you're not just wandering around aimlessly, laying down stitches that could become problematic over time. Okay, so you really want to think through your path. So now I know I'm coming back up here to echo, filling in, and then there's that fun swirling free motion that's going to happen together again. Okay, so now I've reorganized myself. Now this is going to be the hardest possible direction to go, because I'm going to have to go backwards. So just kind of pick a line, use your foot. I'm using the elbow where I guess it'd be the ankle and the foot come together. See that? Just looking at that part right there, using that to kind of echo along. That way, as I come over the top, I know that echoing is in there again. I found that circle I had done before, which gives me the freedom to begin my swirls and swoops. Now, as I'm coming out this way, I've changed the motif a little bit. So instead of that paisley, now I'm doing a little bit more of a rowdy motion here. Watching out, though, because you can see I just got in real close to that other star. So anytime I get close to patchwork that is colored, I should say like that, I can just straight line it, come to a point, and then I can always dance off of that, avoiding that safety pin. I think the reason my mom wanted me to learn to quilt is so I would learn to be quiet. It's one of the only times I don't really want to talk in my life. And those of you who know me well know I never stop talking. But yes, it is hard for me to talk and quilt at the same time. So I'm just going to be quiet for a second and enjoy what I've got going on here. I'm going to go ahead and remove this safety pin. Maybe if I bring this around a little bit, you can see what I've been working on. A little bit better there. Okay, so I want to remove the safety pin because it's getting close to where I'm working. And I really like this style of straight line echoing around the patchwork that's colorized, that's meant to be seen. And then just fill in. Graffiti quilting is what Carly Porter calls it. Doodle quilting is what I used to call it. It's just a series of swirls and swoops and things. I just got a great comment, Janice. You want to see the back? Absolutely, because this is all about learning. So let's take a moment and talk about how we would stop. Maybe we're running out of bobbin thread. I'm in a really good spot to keep on stitching, but this is a great time to get this into some different light so maybe you can see what we've already done together. So yeah, let's go ahead and stop now. And in order to do that, I'm going to take a few stitches up and down, boom, 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 like let's say 3 or 4. That should form a knot. I'm going to lift my presser foot up so I have no tension on my thread. Definitely lift my needle up. So, whoops, got cart in front of the horse. Needle up, foot up. Now as I pull this out of the way, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, grab it with my finger, put a little pressure down with my scissor tip, and do you see that ball of green? That ball of green is the bobbin thread. So if I cut this about halfway through that ball of green, I have cut the top, but I should have also cut, I've cut the bobbin thread as well. So that's a real handy trick to know. All right, team, well, I'm going to lay this flat. I'll grab the camera. Let's talk about how things are going back here. Oh, great. Not perfect, so you'll know that I am human. All right, now we're going for a ride, folks. You're coming out of the tripod. You're going into floater mode, so come with me here. Okay, so there's where we started. We've come down. We were talking about the echoing through. Now, folks, let me be perfectly straight with you. This happens, okay? This is a couple of extra stitches. I don't know if that's where I started and stopped. Not exactly sure, okay? I don't do a ton of free motion quilting on this machine. I can see it's happened a couple of times. It's a dropped stitch now that I get closer and I inspect it, okay? These little spots are where I've taken 5, 6, 7. That was our stop, right? That's where we stopped and put a bunch of stitches in. The only way I think in machine quilting to ever get it perfect is to really match the threads to each other so you don't see it as much, and have those threads also match the front and the back, which basically making it sound like you couldn't see a thing, right? So these are expected. This is a bit of a disappointment, but you know what? It's a quilt, and once it's washed, those will tighten up a little bit. It will definitely hold together. I'm not going to give up. So what do you think? Should we keep on quilting? Throw me some comments. Throw me some thumbs ups or some hearts if you want to keep on quilting. And I'm going to slide you back into the tripod, hoping you'll say yes. Oh, let's look at the top for a second, though, too. If you have questions, again, like I said, I can see the comments. I love what we're doing here together. Drinking coffee, if you were wondering what that weird noise was. Thanks, Stitchin Heaven. It is never perfect, right? But it helps us get done. Okay, I also wanted you to see if we could see the black, because it does look really cool on the top. So let me see if I can slide this through and bring it under the light of the machine. And then we can talk about some tips. Yeah, you can see a little bit there. Yeah, so you can see here how we've just been kind of playing. And what that does is just soften up all of the space and the distance between the machine patchwork itself. And what I'm really trying to say is, because there's no design, there's no motif, there's no wrong answer, right? So you hear the disappointment in a couple of the drops of stitching on the back. But again, it's a good thing. I don't know that I've ever quilted on this machine before, but we wanted to do it, so I thought, let's do it. Now, with that said, I want to talk about the next things we need to be aware of as machine quilters, especially for our new folks. So as I started to quilt into this area, I need to stay in this area. I do not want to do something like where I would come over, let's say around the outside of this star here, roughly, let's get it a little bit more information, okay? So here's our quilting. If I came back and for whatever reason just thought it would be a good idea to start quilting over here and filled in this area, I will have started to trap the excess fabric and batting in this area. So in the basting video, we talked about working from our center out with our pins. Well, we're doing the exact same with our quilting for that reason. I mentioned it earlier in this video. I'm going to take the pins out as I get closer to the edge sooner. I want to be pushing all of my ripple. So now that I have started quilting over here, I'm going to keep quilting over here. It doesn't matter if I come back and I start here where I actually started before, or I come down here and I start where I left off. As long as I'm starting from where I've quilted and worked towards where I have not quilted, I should be keeping the puckers out of the back and the ripples and things out of the front. Conversely, if you ever want something to loft up, now that I've quilted around this, if I don't come back and quilt it again, over time it will pucker up more. Or if I were to come back in and quilt from the center out, I could create a really neat like channel look here because I have, again, trapped all of the excess, but it's not very much right in there. Okay, I think I saw just another question coming in. So Kathleen saying she has a very small throat. And I started on a 6.5-inch machine and quilted about 50 quilts that way. And I'm not saying that's not a small, tiny throat. But what I'm saying is, let's see if I can do this for all of you. Hang on, team. Uh-oh. Are you all still there? Okay. When I'm at my machine, if I'm on a tiny, tiny little machine, and the wall of that machine is right here, I have a very limited place where I can put my hand. When my hands are very narrow, it's just natural that my shoulders come up. If my shoulders come up, I'm going to get tense faster. So that's the worst part of quilting on a small sewing machine. If you can learn to relax your shoulders and just be the director, thumbs together, that's all the space you really need. So I'm not saying you shouldn't be frustrated, and I'm certainly not saying you don't deserve a bigger sewing machine. But I am saying that your frustration may be something that you're not recognizing due to the nature of what happens in just the engineering of sewing. Okay, you guys are all going to love this. I don't know if you can see it. I dropped a bobbin, stood on it, and now I've got thread all around my socks. But that's okay. We're going to go back to quilting here. Let me see if I can bring you all back in close again. Sorry about the shakes. Let's get some more quilting in. That's what I promised today. Let's do another one of those starts so you can all see that. My presser foot is still in the up position. I'm going to come over here in that corner where I pivoted before just to kind of hide my start. I'm going to use my needle down, needle up function. Move to pull that thread up if I can. There it is. Now we're ready to go. I can take a couple of stitches to lock it in place and then begin my machine quilting. I also like to, as soon as I can, come back in and trim these thread tails away. The reason I do that is I don't want to accidentally stitch them into my quilting later, or worse than that, I've had it happen where you catch it somewhere and then it wraps around my foot. Okay, Kat, you're saying you're, oh, right. Yeah, having a big quilt in a small space, right, because now you're limited because you have the extra fabric over to the side. When I first did that, I was in the middle, but I worked into the machine instead of out of the machine. So don't forget, as I get to the middle, I can keep pulling the fabric away versus pushing it in. Maybe that trick will help you. It took me 2 quilts to figure that out, and I thought, my goodness, that makes all the sense in the world. I thought I had to roll it into the machine instead of rolling it out of the machine. I appreciate all the questions. And the interesting thing about this, you know, is we all have our different approaches. We all have our different ways of doing it. And I'm hoping that this is helping some of you just be encouraged to try it, you know. If I wouldn't have done my first quilt this way about 400 quilts ago, I would have never been brave enough to do it live with you all here today. Especially with the anxiety of still needing to get ready to pack for the camp out this weekend. I love doing these swirls. They're really fun and they're real easy. They give us a real nice ability to change motion. Now, I almost quilted myself into a corner. Did you see that? I almost started around the other side of that star, but because I had thread over here, I really was wiser to go up in here. It would have been harder to get back into this section. So I caught myself as I started coming around here. I was going to fill in this way. I'm going to fill in back out this way, giving you the opportunity here to run out that green using my foot as my guide. Oh, okay, another opportunity, kids. I just broke thread. I could hear the change in the sound immediately. This is one of those things that happens to all quilters, so let's deal with it like all quilters will. Okay, I'm going to have to put my needle up. The bobbin should still be connected. I'm going to slide back to the point. I'm going to drop my foot if I can to hold it in place. Now, let's see what's going on. I look up in here. Did my thread snag on something? Was it just a bad movement? Where is my thread? I can't find it. So I've got to kind of have to fish it out. Bringing it out of the machine in sewing direction when possible. Okay. Looks like it's all just shredded. I think I just did too many stitches moving back and forth side to side. So let's get this thing rethreaded pretty quick. Foot up so my thread goes through my tension. Coming around. Praise the Lord for a thread cutter that works. Okay. Now, these thread tails are in my way from before. Let's get those out of the way. What we want to do is we want to try to pick up where we left off and secure the top thread without making a giant mess on the back. Okay, so here's where we left off. I can't get a hold, can't pull up any of the bobbin thread. So I'm going to come to that point. I'm going to drop my foot, drop the needle. Okay. I can't really bring up the bobbin very well if I let go of the thread. So I let go of the thread. Now it's a loop. It's not a tail, okay, because the bobbin is still connected. But this way I can take a few stitches in place, stitch away, continue the direction I was planning on originally, and as soon as I'm clear, I can come back in here and get these thread tails out of the way. So I should have effectively secured everything. Yes, I'm going to have a little green ball of thread right there. I'm sure it won't be the last little green ball of thread on the top of this quilt. Okay, back to quilting as known. Just going to using that foot, echo quilting. So yeah, it was an erratic movement on my part that caused that breakage. As I come up this time to this point, I want to start filling back in the spaces as I had, working along the stitching I've already done. You can do long runs if you need, but don't leave them too open, because if you have a big section of open quilting in a bunch of tight quilting, it'll start to loft up. Remember how we were talking about quilting into an area? Well, you can use that to your advantage or disadvantage. So sometimes we need a long run of quilting to start to lay down a section that might be starting to lift up or puckering, or a seam that's coming loose or something, but you can come back in and fill it in. And you always can cross over your stitching if you need to. It's something we try not to do visually, But if you've done it once, just do it a bunch of times so it makes it look like it's something you're trying to do, such as in circles, where you are always looping back around like I just did there. Okay, so just doing in some fill, having a good old time, stitching away, having a blast. Now, I'm getting further away from where I was working, so I'm going to use this other diamond patchwork to come back down. I can come right off of that corner, filling in. So like I said, I kind of have two different motifs in my brain. I've got a fill in that's just a fluid, open, kind of swirly paisley kind of thing going. And then I'm just trying to echo stitch around the stars and the diamonds. And we will do that for the whole quilt top. And at that point, we then can make our decision, what do we want to do with the stars? And because we're not quilting the stars today, we don't need to worry about quilting the stars at all. So we're not even going to talk about it anymore. Okay, we're going to finish here today in this little section. And I'm just going to mention right now, this is all been trapped, right? I've gone and quilted all of this area. So this is one of these areas. It's not big. It's not going to pucker up much, but I want to work from my edges in a way so that I don't create any one spot that has too much leftover fabric or batting in one location. So you see I'm kind of running the outside perimeter edge now. Coming back in, filling, back around. And right back into a point, which I think is going to be a great place for us to stop for today. So I'm going to take a couple of stitches in place again. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put the needle up, press her foot up so tension's open. I can move my thread here. Let's go ahead and put some pressure on the quilt, pull up on our thread. Sometimes the thread breaks. Cut this free here. Okay. Not too shabby at all. Whew. Oh, sorry. We're going to have a little bit of a rowdy time here. Sorry, knocking the camera over. Anyways, what'd you think, folks? Pretty exciting? Would you like it? Did you like it? Okay, let me turn you back around so you can see, hopefully. Yeah, you can see that decent, I guess, black on black. So please start putting your questions into the comments. I'm going to read the comments for a few minutes, drink a little coffee before I wish you all a beautiful weekend. And let me know what questions I can answer. Next week, I think we're going to go live on Thursday because Friday I'm flying to Texas to get ready for the big quilt show that's out there. So I'll be in town for the quilt show and the following week if anybody wants to come by and say hi. This quilt I don't believe I'll be bringing with me. Oh, what thread am I using? Okay, Philip. So I have Aurifil cotton wound in the bobbin, and I'm using a Mettler black cotton on top, and it's primarily because I was out of black Aurifil. I would have used my black Aurifil on top as well. But so yeah, I have a combination of 40 weight cottons, Mettler on top, and Aurifil on the bobbin, and the green. Okay, and now after some more quilting, you can see we're having a little bit of tension. So quiz time. If I'm seeing a little bit of these specks on the back, am I going to tighten or loosen my upper tension if I really wanted to try to adjust that? Okay, the answer for that is I should tighten the top to try to bring that a little bit deeper into the batting. I'm going to tighten my top tension to try to bring that green thread up a little bit. And then there was another great question I just saw. Do you always start quilting from the center? Most of the time we do, yes. We do want to start quilting from the center because that really helps us move that batting and everything out Helps us move all that excess fabric out. Oh, sorry, folks. Oh no, my tripod's dying. So let's do this, team. I'm just going to say thank you. I know some of you were asking about what parts of that you can see on the wall earlier today. That is, ready? The center of that star over there, that is the Super 60 Sampler quilt. Just released the pattern, so you can purchase that at Stitchin Heaven. And then I also have the template set. You've got to have the templates to do it. We have kits for this you can get on pre-order. I'm doing a retreat for the project, and I have it on the design wall because I'm just starting to work on the video tutorial for all of you. I really appreciate you all being here and supporting the brand. Make sure you are subscribed. Oh, I had one last question to answer. So if we look back across the room over here on the other side of the long arm, which we are not using on this quilt, right? There is a briefcase with handcuffs. And one of the questions last week was, Rob, what are the handcuffs for? Well, of course. What do you think the handcuffs are for? It's a top secret briefcase, man. Anyways, okay. Hey, thank you for being here, everybody. I love you. I'm super excited to be doing this. We are going to quilt this quilt together, an hour at a time, live at a time, just kind of enjoying. So get your questions out there. Please share this video with all of your friends that need it. I really feel encouraged that this is something important to be doing. I know that it's not as high production quality, but sometimes this is what we need to do, is just pal up, be buddies together, quilting together, and doing it the way we all do it. So anyways, I love you all. Have a great weekend. We'll see you real soon. Adios.